yeah, lots of adventures, lots of going from place to place, lots of stuff to do, and, a little bit of backstory tossing in. I'm not trying to push myself. I'm just grabbing tropes that I ordinarily use. You can see that with the messed up, family interred alive situation, which is, gross and grim and scary and my kind of thing. The self-sacrifice at the, by the spirit magic group. Boy, it really hit the table hard when the one NPC, whom they had never met and had no investment in or anything, but just the way that scene was rolling, and when he kills himself to trap his own spirit inside those wards, so that becomes kind of a haunted, guardian spot of this, impressive mystical event having occurred there. It really kind of shook them up as a collectively, and I think they all kind of okay, we're gonna take this pretty seriously, and that was a real example. Made me really think about, okay, now the spirit magic woman, and the people she came with and their goals here and everything are not joking around. So now that she's ritually married to Jovan, now we've got all kinds of stuff to do, with that. Not in the sense of, oh, look what I made you do, now you're in trouble, but so much as, well, now we've got relationships, we've got stuff to work with. It's after 3 sessions, it's really time for me to make an NPC list. Not so much in terms of a complicated, agenda-driven backstory, so much as who are they, what do they want, let's be nice and solid here. Got plenty of threat to work with to continue on, so that's fine. Now we need people, and it shouldn't be very hard. I've got a little bit of a break. We've got the holidays, giving us all 2-3 weeks off from gaming, once we looked at everybody's schedules, and it's kind of well timed. It's a really good time for me to look at this and say, all right, what are we working with here? What, staying nice and easy is the point. Not pushing myself to drill, just staying nice and easy, having fun making up a slightly, irresponsibly interesting, pseudo-Egyptian, pseudo-Greek, pseudo-whatever, pantheon, and having fun with it, and recognizing that in play, we're going to beef it up. I'm really looking forward to, Sandra's buried dead cult as we continue to work it up into relevance. Seems like it will be soon. So we've got that. And then we also have some of the visual inspiration to acknowledge. Certainly, well, let's see. I've got them listed so I don't forget anybody. Well, first of all, I was just running searches for stuff like, heroic fantasy sketch. You'll notice I like sketches. So it makes searches easier too, because there are certain words that get you certain results that you won't get if you throw it in as a sketch. So that helps. And I like the idea that the sketch is unfinished, so it goes into play as an unfinished thing, and it in play is when you actually finish the illustration. I think that really works, actually. So therefore, that ended me up on searches, in Pinterest and Sketchite and stuff like that. And sometimes the referencing on those is crap, so you end up with not knowing, who did that work. There's a couple that I couldn't really chase down in references, but I actually had this in mind to try and reference these. So I got most of them. The whole world map, that kind of crescent shape with the big, huge cliff thing in the middle, comes from a project at a blog that a guy was doing for Pathfinder. He called the world Theerdane, and he did a lot of stuff on this blog, but not since 2013. Anyway, but the website is fancartography. .wordpress.com, and so it's all still there. You can go and check that out. He went into some of the places and did some more detail, did a lot of rendering. I'm not really using any of that. I'm just taking that first sketch and playing with that is my thing now. Hope he doesn't mind. Don't know his name. I don't know if I'll be able to hunt it down or not. Well, anyway, so thanks to the Theerdane gal, whoever has done that particular blog, because it's a great map and I'm liking it. For other maps, clearly I'm relying on my pal Dice and Logos, and especially because you can take some island that he does and just point to one of the islands on the big map and say, oh well, this is that island, and there you are. And the island map that I'm using from him is really rich. I hadn't really realized it when I grabbed it. On second glance, I'm like, wow, the northern side of it's really cool. So we'll see. I mean, I'm using 1/8 of it so far, and all this stuff is cropped up. So that's a lot that one map can provide if we plan to stick around that area. And if we don't, there's more room to do the same with lots of other places. So I'm already using a whole bunch of his maps for sort of the underground complexes and the towers and stuff like that. There's an artist named Joshua Dunlow who did that half-orc picture that I'm using for Zort. There's several by Brina Williamson at brinawilliamson.com. She's got a whole gallery there and tons of sketches and finished work. And the Skava picture and a couple of others come from there, the Urko picture. Then there's Eva Wilderman, who did the picture that I used for Jovan. She has a lot of outfit designs, different outfits for characters to be in, and that whole kind of elaborate harness he's wearing with the the animal fur and stuff. That's all her stuff, and she's got a ton of it. I found it all at I don't know how to say it, Behance.net. Anyway, but so that's her reference. So thanks to everybody. I'm ripping your pictures, but not for profit or for sale, just for my fun game, and I hope that's okay. Anything else I might want to chat about? Again, you're probably saying, oh, Ron, this again. Okay, so in the Gloranthan history, you read the books, and at first it seems like, okay, there's a normal fantasy world with cool shit, and then there's chaos. Chaos screws it all up, and chaos is an abomination, and it's non-Euclidean, and that kind of thing. Well, what I think regarding this is that chaos turns out to be unavoidable in Glorantha, and that it is a piece of what we do. In this, the Lunars are right. Their thought that they can control it isn't, but they're right about that philosophically. The hardcore anti-chaos conservatism of the Hjorling culture has to adjust to this through the course of the Hero Wars, and we could go on from there. But the deal here is that I like to mess with this in my own imaginings. And those of you who know about Circle of Hands are obviously, onto this when you say, oh, look, he's basically, there isn't any chaos. What there is are these sort of very elemental principles that, go with right and wrong and life and death and stuff like that. And as soon as you abstract them out of human concerns or material concerns, then you end up with what is effectively, evil. So the lesson in Circle of Hands is, get away from the messy realities of human life, and you end up with, things that may be right and wrong, but they are also inimical to anything you and I care about. So there's that. And then there's what I did with the RuneQuest system already, which is real different. And in fact, it's sort of the opposite in that the world is evil, basically, or has become so. That all the elemental stuff and all of the very accessible godly stuff, I mean, they're wretched. They're just fucking awful. Your parents are lying to you. The world is shit, and the way it's going has only gotten worse, and the worse it gets, the more they lie, and it's awful. Everything. And the only sort of hope, or maybe it's hope, is these new godlings, and they're all, and here, I coded again with the imagery that's light, and it's even sort of an unearthly light, and is very, you can say, oh, illumination. Well, yeah, a little bit, from Glorantha, but not really. Each one is definitely hopeful and idealistic, and offers, better alternatives perhaps than the wretchedness of everything that you're engaged in and expected of you. But of course, each one goes too far, or you could go yourself too far with them, should you do so. So it's a real sorcerer in that sense, that particular setting. This one is probably the most, sort of mundane-ish of them, but I got to thinking, and I was like, okay, I still like the idea of chaos as normal, and we're going to take that all the way. Chaos is totally normalized now. It's just another form. There's, beast, and there's plant, and there's chaos. Okay, it's a piece of the world, and people cope with it in different ways, with approval or disapproval, try to control it, try to eradicate it, stuff like that. But it's kind of a little chaos compared to anything that you can find in Glorantha. So if chaos is merely another form rune, then, what's the problem? Well, I got to really thinking about that, and I said, let's give all the gods a form rune. So elements, probably, conditions, sure, and all that, great, but always a form rune if you're a god. So what that means is that the gods are of the world. I value the sort of Gloranthan idea that the true god time is over, so that you're not going to see them walking around, but still the idea being that they take their identity from, things you can wrap on or feel or taste or, stuff like that. So that means that here, the evil, which in this case is the gods before the world was broken, well, you could even call them enlightened, and that's why I associated this one with light. It's a little bit like Amborion in Circle of Hands, a bit, in that it's a sterilizing kind of light and is very abstract. And I went further with it this time in terms of specifics, in that it was basically objectivity, looking at things as the expression of abstract principles, whether you want to call them quarks or ideals or anything of the kind. And so, that's kind of just running with that. It's kind of interesting, from our perspective as moderns, to say, well, the whole point was to get to these essential or, intangible to us, principles by which matter is constructed. And whether you want to say that those are moral or not, that's a philosophical question. But the idea is that we kind of get that. I mean, it's sort of part and parcel with what we even call enlightenment. Hey, let's understand mathematics better. Hey, let's understand, gravity better. Let's get a look at, what's making, the physical world around us go. Whereas in this context, for this game, that is horrifying, or at least our encounter with it is traumatic rather than inspiring. And the characters and the gods and so forth are quite comfortable with their grubby, messy, kind of practical, even kind of chaos accepting way of looking at things, and the idea that something can come along and say, well, the square root of 2 changes everything. I mean, whoa, that's just, you could played the shamaness as just completely bowled over by this. So anyway, kind of having fun with that, and don't want to get too intellectual with it inside the game, just keeping it experiential. But that's kind of where I'm coming from, sort of fun to play with as a framework, and the runes are certainly helping me set up the Pantheon in that context. Anyway, so look forward to more. We're having a good time, and I don't mean to turn this into major world building, but I want to have a little as we go along, and I want to have fun, furious, adventures that are motivated. As the players have really internalized their characters, you can see it happening. Special credit to William. You may have noted a huge difference between the way that he played Jovan in the second session versus the third. I was really concerned about it, and he and I got together, hung out for a while, and chatted it over, and it had a real kind of a meeting of minds, which was nice. I was a little afraid that it might be he might get defensive, or a person might get defensive, but no. And he said, okay, I'm doing it. I get that. I wasn't surprised because I had really enjoyed playing with William beforehand, and that's why the second session actually sort of surprised me. And so then I said, well, how are we approaching this game? And you can see the result. I mean, Jovan was a whole different kind of guy this time, and the questions that were asked about how the player relates to the content, completely different experience and very strong. I think everybody felt it too. His fight with the fiery spear, was pretty notable. Makes me want to throw another monster at Jovan just so we get to watch him fight again, So that's where we're at. Hoping you're liking it, and I look forward to showing you more as we go along.